The difference between the trader who consistently extracts wealth from the markets and the one who perpetually surrenders it has almost nothing to do with the quality of their charts, the sophistication of their indicators, or even the elegance of their strategy. This is the uncomfortable truth that the industry doesn't want you to understand. Because if you truly grasped it, you would stop buying courses on candlestick patterns and start doing the far more difficult work of reconstructing the architecture of your own mind. The top 1% of traders, the ones who move through volatile markets with an almost supernatural composure, have won a battle that most never even realize they're fighting. They have won this battle before they ever risk a single dollar, before they ever click the buy or sell button, before they even turn on their trading platform. What separates them is not what they do in the market, but who they have become before entering it. Let me take you into the invisible war that determines everything. When you approach trading, you bring with you the entire weight of your psychological inheritance. You carry evolutionary programming designed for a world of immediate physical threats, not probabilistic outcomes distributed across thousands of trials. You carry cognitive biases honed over millions of years to prioritize survival over accuracy. You carry emotional systems that were calibrated for tribal dynamics and resource scarcity, not for the abstraction of flickering numbers on a screen that represent your financial future. Your brain, magnificent as it is, was not designed for trading. It was designed to keep you alive on the African savanna. And every instinct it possesses will sabotage you in the market unless you understand this fundamental mismatch and do the painstaking work to override it. The amateur trader believes the game is about finding the right entry. The professional knows the game is about managing the space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, wrote that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is not trading philosophy borrowed from psychology. This is the essence of what separates consistent profitability from inevitable ruin. Every single trade you will ever take begins with a stimulus, a breakout, a rejection, a news event, a pattern forming. And in that moment, the vast majority of traders collapse the space between seeing and acting into nothing. They are stimulus-response machines, no different from Pavlov's dog salivating at the bell. They see the setup and they click. They feel the fear and they exit. They experience the euphoria and they size up. They have abdicated the throne of conscious decision-making and handed control to the most primitive parts of their nervous system. The top 1% have expanded that space. They have built what we might call psychological infrastructure in the gap between perception and action. When they see a setup, there is a pause, imperceptible perhaps to the outside observer, but vast in its implications. In that pause lives a framework, a series of questions, a protocol, not a mechanical checklist, but a living examination. Does this align with my thesis? What is the asymmetry of this risk? What is my actual edge here, and can I articulate it in a single sentence? Am I acting from analysis or from arousal? This internal dialogue is not hesitation. It is sovereignty. It is the reclamation of agency from the tyranny of impulse. But let's go deeper, because even this framing assumes you have clarity about what you're trying to accomplish. And most traders are operating in a fog of confused intentions. They have never done the foundational work of defining what trading actually is for them. Is it intellectual stimulation? Is it income replacement? Is it the thrill of competition? Is it an escape from a life they find unbearable? Until you excavate your true relationship with trading, you will be at the mercy of motivations you don't understand. The trader who is using the market as a proxy for self-worth will never be able to take a loss cleanly, because each loss is not merely financial feedback, but an existential wound. The trader who is seeking stimulation will inevitably overtrade, because the goal is not profit, but neurochemical activation. The trader chasing validation will size up irresponsibly when winning and disappear when losing, because the audience in their mind demands a performance. The 1% have confronted this. They have sat with the question of why they are really doing this, and they have answered it with ruthless honesty. They know that trading, at its core, is a vehicle for compound growth built on accepting small, repeated discomforts in exchange for long-term asymmetric outcomes. They know it is boring. They know it requires becoming comfortable with uncertainty, with being wrong, with missing moves, with watching others make money in ways they never would. They have made peace with the aesthetic of what profitable trading actually looks like, and it bears no resemblance to the highlight reels and screenshot bravado that saturate social media. It looks like discipline in the face of monotony. It looks like saying no 100 times to say yes once with conviction. It looks like taking losses that were planned and feeling nothing, and taking wins that were expected and feeling nothing. This emotional neutrality is not sociopathy. It is mastery. Consider the concept of identity, because this is where the transformation truly begins. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. This insight, articulated by James Clear, is devastating in its implications for trading. If you are cutting losses reluctantly, you are voting for the identity of someone who cannot face reality. If you are revenge trading after a loss, you are voting for the identity of someone controlled by emotion. If you are breaking your rules when the trade moves against you, you are voting for the identity of someone whose word means nothing, even to themselves. The amateur looks at these actions as isolated mistakes. The professional sees them as identity formation. They understand that every violation is not just a tactical error, but an act of self-definition, and they protect their identity with the ferocity that the action deserves. So the top 1% engage in something most traders never even consider. They design their identity before they design their strategy. They ask themselves who they need to become in order to execute consistently. They write it down. They define the virtues of the trader they aspire to be. Patient, disciplined, reality-based, unemotional in execution, ruthlessly honest in assessment, process-oriented. And then they reverse engineer their daily behavior to align with that identity. They don't wait to feel like that person. They act like that person, and the identity crystallizes through repetition. This is not motivational platitude. This is applied behavioral psychology, the same mechanism that creates every habit, every skill, every transformation in human behavior. Now let's address the elephant in the psychological room, the force that destroys more traders than bad strategy ever could. Loss aversion. Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for formalizing what every trader feels viscerally. The pain of losing is approximately twice as psychologically powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Think about what this means for your trading. It means that your system, your very nervous system, is wired to make you a bad trader. It means that you will instinctively hold losers too long, hoping they come back, because realizing the loss delivers acute psychological pain. It means you will cut winners too early, because the fear of watching a profit turn into a loss is unbearable. It means you will avoid pulling the trigger on valid setups, because the potential pain of being wrong outweighs the potential pleasure of being right, even when the mathematics heavily favor the trade. The average trader tries to fight this with willpower, and willpower is a finite resource that depletes under stress. The top 1% don't fight it. They architect around it. They make loss aversion irrelevant by reducing the emotional charge of each individual trade. How? By trading smaller. By having so many at-bats that each one becomes psychologically trivial. By predefining risk so precisely that the loss, when it comes, was already accepted before the trade was entered. They perform what we might call preemptive grief. They mourn the risk capital before deploying it. They visualize the stop being hit and their account being smaller, and they make peace with it in advance. This is not pessimism. This is emotional preloading. The same technique used by astronauts and special forces operators to reduce panic in high-stress situations. By the time the trade is live, the emotional work is done. But there's an even more subtle layer here, one that requires us to think about probability in a way that is deeply counterintuitive. Traders often speak about having an edge, but they don't truly internalize what an edge means across a distribution of outcomes. An edge is not a guarantee. It is not even a high probability of success on any individual trade. An edge is a statistical expectancy that only reveals itself over a large sample size. You can have a genuine edge and lose 7 trades in a row. You can have no edge and win 5 trades in a row. Any individual outcome is nearly random. The signal emerges from the aggregate. The top 1% think in distributions, not in predictions. When they enter a trade, they are not asking, will this work? But rather, if I take this trade setup 100 times under similar conditions, will I be profitable? This shift in framing is everything. It removes the emotional sting from being wrong, because being wrong on this trade was always part of the plan. This is why the obsession with win rate is a trap that ensnares the mediocre. A high win rate feels good. It satisfies our need for validation. It allows us to tell a story about being right. But in trading, being right and making money are not the same thing. You can be right 60% of the time and lose money if your average loss is larger than your average win. You can be right 40% of the time and compound wealth rapidly if your winners are multiples of your losers. The top 1% have subordinated their ego's need to be right to the portfolio's need to grow. They take losses quickly and without drama because those losses are the cost of doing business, the price paid for the opportunity to catch asymmetric wins. Let's talk about preparation, because this is where the invisible work happens. The trader who belongs to the 1% does not show up to the market hoping for opportunity. They have done the work in advance. They have studied historical price action until patterns are internalized. They have backtested their methodology until they know the statistical character of their edge. They have forward-tested in live conditions with small size until their execution is automatic. They have written a trading plan that is so specific that it removes real-time decision-making from everything except position management. They know what they will trade, when they will trade it, how large they will trade it, where they will enter, where they will exit if wrong, and where they will exit if right. This document is not a suggestion. It is a contract with themselves, and they honor it the way a surgeon honors a protocol, because lives, or at least livelihoods, depend on it. And here is where we arrive at perhaps the most important distinction of all. The top 1% have accepted that they cannot control outcomes. They can only control process. This surrender is not defeat. It is liberation. The amateur is outcome dependent. They measure the quality of their trading by whether they made money today, this week, this month. This makes them volatile, reactive, desperate. A string of losses sends them into self-doubt and system hopping. A string of wins inflates their ego and leads to recklessness. They are on an emotional roller coaster and the market is driving. The professional is process-dependent. They measure the quality of their trading by whether they followed their plan. Did I wait for my setup? Did I size appropriately? Did I manage the trade according to my rules? Did I exit where I said I would? If the answer is yes, the trade was successful, regardless of whether it made money. This might sound like semantic gymnastics, but it is the key to psychological sustainability in a probabilistic endeavor. Because here's what happens when you make this shift. You remove the market's ability to destabilize you. The market can take your money on any individual trade, and it will, often, but it cannot take your process. Your process is yours. It is the only thing in trading you truly own, and when you anchor your self-assessment to process rather than outcome, you build something remarkable. You build anti-fragility. You become stronger through disorder. Each loss that was taken correctly reinforces your discipline. Each missed trade that you didn't chase reinforces your patience. You are no longer at war with the market. You are at peace with your system, and the market becomes simply the environment in which that system operates. So when we talk about becoming the top 1% before you even place a trade, we are talking about this entire edifice of psychological preparation. We are talking about knowing yourself with uncomfortable clarity. We are talking about designing an identity worth inhabiting. We are talking about building infrastructure in the space between stimulus and response. We are talking about making peace with loss and probability and uncertainty. We are talking about subordinating ego to process and outcome to expectancy. This work is not exciting. It will not give you a dopamine rush. It cannot be packaged into a 3-step formula. It is slow, introspective, and often painful, because it requires confronting parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime avoiding. But this is the work. This is the difference. And the beautiful, terrible truth is that it is available to anyone willing to do it. The market does not care about your credentials or your intelligence or your background. It cares only about whether you can execute your edge consistently without self-sabotage. Everything else is noise. The trader you become in the silence before the trade determines the wealth you extract over a lifetime. Choose that person carefully, deliberately, and then become them through 10,000 small acts of alignment. That is how you join the 1%. Not by finding a better strategy, but by becoming someone capable of executing any sound strategy without interference from the parts of you that were never designed for this game.